Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Origins Creepy Chronicles. Today we're looking at another CreepyPasta, and this one is Pokemon Lost Silver. You may have heard about it before. There's not really anything disturbing in this one, but just take it with a pinch of salt and just don't be too scared, eh? So I'm just going to read through this now and, hopefully have some nice illustrations on screen, and you can leave your thoughts in the comments. I shall start now. You see, I am a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside for school purposes. That means no 4chan, no Wikipedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realised that long ago, my mum threw it away because I told her the save went dead, and as I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I have is the Game Boy Color. As such, I sat at the GameStop and bought a used Silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game left they had for the GBC. $10, fairly cheap. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on again. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over, and all of the buttons. Eventually, the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu section, I was already in the game in a previous save file, which was odd as I was expecting all these carts to have been wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyway. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile and apparently he had 999 hours and 99 minutes put into the game, with all 16 badges, 99,000 or 999,099.9 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknown and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played the game, but I decided to check the profiles of these Pokemon anyways. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this is before there were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 health points left, and with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that, despite my volume being at maximum, none of the Pokemon he had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at what appears to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if it was just leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes but couldn't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried taking my items from an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There weren't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black and the music started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognised that melody I heard to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Elf Ruins where the unknown are at. I immediately realised that this wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need flash. Before I took care of that though, I immediately checked my Pokégear to change the radio to something more pleasant, but it turns out there was no radio card, or even a phone, nor time cards. There was only a map card in which Gold, ... from earlier, and I will call him Gold from now on, was just walking in the midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has flash, so I turned off my Pokégear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any message saying, hurry as use flash, or anything like that. The room just became lit, just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red with a linear grey path heading south. The ladder I used to go up or down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes as I did not know what I was asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climb sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced by the not as creepy poker flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Harry has fainted, which was odd since I recall there was no status conditions like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in the battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon are there, but instead all replaced with level 10 Unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out the Unknown. My then team of Unknown spelled, "He died." Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were grey bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I've walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that it was certainly a hacked game, and some sadistic fuck, sorry for the language, sold it to GameShop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again, only to find out that the sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, it also said that he now has 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimlessly wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, my character spun downwards slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Gold is coloured differently now. Instead of the usual red colour he dons, he appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colourless Game Boy games, placed into a coloured background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile and now, while now he is as white as his overworld sprite, he has lost his legs and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says he has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me as this change of number seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contained 5 Unknown and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The Unknown at this time leveled 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm and 1 eye. It only has 1 attack, Perish Song. The area I was in itself was a Sprout Tower with the immobile pillar as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually, I finally encountered some generic men and women NPCs. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long slanted pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happened when I tried to speak to them. I kept on going north until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to the red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in the battle. The music starts again, which sounds like the Unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle back sprite matches his front one with the bloody eyes, white skin and lack of arms, while Red sprite was the same as before in GSC, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he has no name, and both of us only have 1 Pokemon each, which is weird as I swore I had 6 with the Unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise and animation was different, as the sound it made sounded like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sound has a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255 and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than an usual fight, item, Pokemon or run menu, I was only given the option to use attacks. Since Celebi only has 1, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get Code. Not like I have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also note that there were no animations at all, for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level and boost, as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happens as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, again sorry for the language, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 health points. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 health points. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like that, they don't anything at all. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except in the text it said Celebi has died, and instead of the ordinary drop off the screen animation, the Celebi back sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was stuck even with Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards, it said Pikachu has died with a slow fade out animation. Apparently, I was the winner, as a transparent red sprite showed up and said ... At that point, I just freaked out, as that transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point, and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld, with another change to the Gold sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time the only thing remains of him is his head, with a transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. It now stated he has 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 Shiny Unknown, which when spelled out read no more. I was at what I now know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like there was something that we heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown. Maybe finally I get to play this game properly, but who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic swear word must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was waiting down there. Note I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so, just floating like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except Mum isn't home. After failing to interact with anything in this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, that door leading outside of itself didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through it to avoid. I continued moving south to see what the heck was going on. My house vanishes as I head south into the void. It was creepy as when I entered the void, the outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye forever," notably with a space in between the forever and vanished. As that happened, it said, question mark, used Nightmare, which at that point I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small hollowed out room surrounded by graves earlier, or at least they say I was back there as there's no sprite anymore. I tried walking around, but nothing moved, not even wall bumping noises. I checked my trainer profile with obviously no Gold sprite left. It said I had 0 badges, and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 Unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase that I dared to read: "I'm dead." As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in then was covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out what exactly the room was when the final text was said: RIP. That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold had already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempting at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text, no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game and the same thing happened, at which I had finally decided to give up on the horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick Unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation have folk tales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me. So guys, that's it. We actually have a game which you would have seen in the background as I was reading this out. Hopefully it fit in play fairly well, sorry. But yeah, apart from that, I hope you enjoyed the video. we're guessing this is, you know, obviously, well, it's not a real sort of thing. It was obviously a hacked ROM, or just made up. So yeah, what are your thoughts, guys? Would you freak out if this happened to you, if you got a hacked ROM with something like this on, or, you know, something along those lines, guys? What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like for this very long video, thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.